Well, hello, hello, hello. Welcome to the podcast. We have a special treat today. I am sitting down with Joseph, and I am very excited to learn more about what he does and how he helps community. Joseph, please tell the people a little bit about yourself.
First of all, Julio, gracias for having me on your show.
Now,
Um, m- so my name is Josef Stetter. I am a resume whisperer and a corporate culturist. So a little bit of kind of how I became that. I didn't know what I want to do when I grew up. So I personally switched careers 9 times and jobs over 18 times. Along the way, I started kind of investing in myself and kind of realizing, you know what, because I've switched careers and I've switched industries, there's patterns. So I started kind of teaching people this, and I've had the honor and the pleasure of helping over 12,000 people land their dream job in as little as two
oh,
days.
that is amazing.
Um, and I focus on kind of teaching people the mistakes that they make, because most people kind of say the same thing over and over. Like, what are your three strengths? I'm hardworking, dedicated, committed team player. How many people you know that go to an interview go, listen, I'm lazy, I'll show up late, none of them are really good, and I really hate people. Please hire me. Right.
Yeah.
Right. Not unless you're related to them or you're having an affair with them. Let's be honest, kind of thing. Right. And in between that, I've owned my own recruiting firm. I've been a generalist in recruiting for 20 years. I work with, small to global companies such as Deloitte, Iptex Pharmaceuticals, Tata Consulting Services, Eli Lilly, big banks and finance. And so I've not only kind of mastered it from helping the individual, but now as a corporate culturist, I help companies understand that if you don't take care of people, right, turnover in North America cost $1.4 trillion with a T, not a B, right? And so companies that, a lot of them talk about corporate culture, and I use that in quotations, but they don't actually practice it. So, you know, give you an example, like I love Halloween. I'm a big kid at heart, right? And so if the company says, let's have a Halloween costume party, but none of the executives dress up,
Yeah,
it
what's the
sends a
point?
message of like lip service, like, yeah, whatever, we don't care, do your thing. Now, even if the executive has meetings all day, go to their dollar store, buy a mask for $2, right? Go in, wear the mask, shake hands with people that actually dress up, take a few pictures for the companies there, because that 15 minutes is the difference between I trust you and I'll follow you to I'll do just enough not to get fired, because you clearly don't care about me. Why would I care about kind of you and the company? And so part of corporate culture is also kind of explaining to leadership that you don't need Google money to create culture. You just need to be consistent in your messaging. So, don't tell me that you're fun and then nothing in the company is fun, for example, right? So I kind of wear both hats, and along the ways of, switching careers, I've had my ups and downs. I had a business partner that taught me a very, very expensive lesson in life that cost me over $500,000,
Oof.
to, you know, weird stories and interviews of things that people do. And you're like, no, there's no way people, yes, they did, kind of
Yes,
thing.
I love it. And it's important what you're doing. Like, it's very important. So I have some questions. So I
Please.
like that you work both sides, right? You work the organization, you help them in learning how to do that, and people. I like the resume whisperer. Brand it. I love it. So what do you think are the most common mistakes people make when they're trying to get into the job market?
So we'll start with how they find a job, like look for a job, and then I'll get a little bit into the resume, and then a little bit into the interview, if that's okay with you, Hugo.
Yes,
Julio.
yes, please.
Okay,
Please.
so starting with, the majority of people spend most of their time and most of their energy on job boards like Indeed. Indeed is one of the worst places to look for a job, because one job posting in Indeed gets between 350 and 5,000 applications. Most companies look at the first 100. And
That's
unless you know the tricks to get noticed, so for example, one of the main things, or two of the main things, I should say, is that most of the big job boards like Indeed, Glassdoor, Career Builder, all that, usually refresh their database between 11:45 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and 2:45 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. So depending on when you go to bed,
Listen to this man. That is great information.
right? So depending on when you go to bed, go into your resume, press spacebar anywhere on the resume and press save. The moment that you press spacebar, you've made a change to your resume. And so Indeed looks and goes, oh, that's a new resume. Because if you posted your resume, let's say in September, and we're now in January, you're on page 7,000 of the database. Nobody sees you, right? So just going and pressing spacebar, adding a period somewhere and erasing it, saving it, like just any minor change will get you noticed. Second thing is, for the past, I'd say, 100 years, we've been taught to add action words to your resume. Yes. Like dedicate, manage, direct, liaise, coordinated, all of that lingo. Here's the thing. The applicant tracking systems don't measure those words. They measure the technical or the words related to the profession that you're doing. So, for example, if you're an accountant, they measure the words accountant, accounting, financial statements, balance sheet, income statement, reconciliation, general ledger, audit, not hardworking, dedicated, committed team player, not managed, direct, liaise. Yet, yes, we want to use the action words to show that you're good and you produce results. But this is both in the resume, in the interview, and in general. Most people go to an interview and give me generic. Like if someone asks you, tell me about this job, and you go, oh, I know how to do this. I have experience with that. Who cares? Like, so if you're a receptionist and you come to a job and you say, hey, I know how to answer the phone, I hope the employer looks at you in shock and goes, man, a receptionist that knows how to answer the phone. We did not know that. Because unless you live in an igloo, a cave, or practice the faith of Mennonite, my 2.5-year-old son can press the green button and go, hello, and it's very cute, but it doesn't tell me anything. Now, if you quantify, I know how to answer 60 calls a day with 12 different lines, I can measure 60 calls a day with 12 different lines. I cannot measure, I know how to answer the phone, right? And the majority of people that write a resume and interview kind of do autoresponder where they're like, yeah, I know how to do this and I've worked here, but you haven't told me why you're better than everybody else, right? So Hulu, if I look at you, like I've had 100 podcasts, I've had 200, I've had 500. The more podcasts you have credibility, that you have longevity, that you've kind of figured out the kinks of how to make sure that the podcast, it goes viral or whatever the case may be. So there's a level of credibility. So even for me, I'm a resume whisperer. I've earned that title because I've helped 12,000 people land their dream job in as little as 2 days. And I've learned the systems and techniques from it. Right now, so your job search alone should be spread out like this. Let's say 10% of your time should be job boards like Indeed and Glassdoor and Career Builder and all of the other ones. Then 25% of your job search should be employment agencies, recruiters, staffing firms. Why? Because they already have ins with the companies that you're trying to work with. And a lot of times, companies will use multiple recruiters to try and fill the position. So if you have 3 recruiters that like you and represent you to the same company, the odds that that company is going to interview are significantly higher. And generally speaking, in the recruiting world, whoever represents you first or has the best relationship with that company is going to make money off you. It doesn't affect you because it doesn't cost you anything. The agencies charge the employer, for example, right? Yeah. So I recommend to register with a minimum of 6 to kind of 10. The reason I say 6 to 10 is because I assume half of them are not going to like you. They're not going to like your name. They're not going to like your age. They're not going to like where you live. They don't like a company you work for. But again, in North America, we're a culture that's never going to say to you, hey, I don't like you, Julio. Like, so, Latin culture is a little bit more direct, but HR, we're all afraid of lawsuits. We're all afraid of kind of saying the bad things. So we're just going to ignore you kind of thing. So if you register with 6, you don't know which 3 will not like you. Now, if all 6 of them love you, even better, more results for you kind of thing, right? 25% of your job search should be networking and referrals. Now, here's the thing. Most people, when they do networking, also do that wrong. Because they come into networking and they go, oh, you sound important. Here's my resume. Can I have a job? Like, who are you?
Yeah, I don't know.
I can't tell how many times I've been to a networking event where people have walked by and go, you sound important. Can I have your card? And they email me the next day, go, here's my resume. Can I have a job? who did we have a conversation? So part of the thing is that I'm a very big thing about branding yourself, right? You alluded to that a little bit earlier, Julio. So like my favorite color is purple. If you look me up anywhere on any online platform, like when I go to a networking event, I have a purple shirt on, I have a purple pen, I have a purple bag, I have purple business cards, right? So that even if I send you an email afterwards because we had a conversation and say, I'm the guy in purple, you might not remember my name, you'll remember the purple, right? So for men, you have kind of like, you can wear for like, I went to like an event where there was a guy that wore like neon fedoras, like bright orange and bright. Nobody remembered his name, but they're like the fedora guy, the guy that wears the colorful fedora. So you can wear a fedora, you can wear a funny tie, like a Mickey Mouse tie or something that's silly, that's kind of a conversation starter. If you have a great watch, you can wear a watch that kind of gets attention. You can wear, again, pick colors like blue, gray, black, kind of brown. Those are standard in the corporate world. So
you don't
get something that's unique to you, even if you have shoes that are, a little bit out there. It's okay as long as you're consistent in showing up that way, right? And then for women, you have a ton more choices because you have earrings, you have scarves, you have brooches, you have, a whole the hair, whatever, kind of right. But first of all, brand yourself. Second of all, when you're going to a networking event, especially one where there is decision makers, right? I'm not talking about like the typical like networking, like a meetup group. I'm talking about an event like, where you go on Eventbrite and you're paying a few $100s to go to this event and there's decision makers there. Instead of coming and saying, hey, Julio, you're an executive. Can I get a job? I haven't earned the right. First, get to know Julio. So come and say, Julio, oh, you're a director. Tell me, what made you so successful in your career, right? Then ask them, what would you say are your 3 biggest accomplishments in your career? Because everybody loves to brag about themselves. And you're giving that executive the chance that they're not interviewing for a job, but they get to show you that they're great, right? Then transition the conversation to, if you were mentoring somebody in this industry, what would you focus on mentoring them on, right? And let them guide you as to what they kind of think. Then after you've done that and you've built rapport with them because you've given them a chance to brag, you can ask permission for them, not to ask for the job, but for them to give you feedback on their resume. Now, why is this so important? Because if you got an executive that gives you feedback on your resume, they're writing for you the resume that they want to see. They're writing the resume that they want to hire, right? And so after all that, now you say, hey, Julio, you know what? I've learned so much from you. Like, your accomplishments are amazing. You sound like an amazing leader. I would love to be part of your team and make you look good and make you earn a bigger bonus, right?
Oh, that's
right.
I would have knew you a few years ago.
Right. So now what happens is you've earned the right to say, hire me. Plus, they've given you feedback on the resume, so they've written exactly what they want to see there, kind of thing, right? And so it's a different conversation than, oh, here's my card or here's my resume. Can I have a job? All right. So the next 25% should be LinkedIn and other social media platforms, because a lot of companies have business pages now. And so if you interact on the business page where you put a comment or you put an article, all of a sudden that company will start following you and seeing who you are and chasing you down rather than the other way around.
You're looking for talent as well.
Right. Again, $1.4 trillion in turnover. Last year alone, over 65 million people quit their job in North America. Quit. Right? So imagine how much that's hurting companies.
Yes.
Right? And then the last, let's say 15%, which is probably the hardest of them all, is to pick 20 companies, let's say, that you really want to work for and start being there. So one great way to connect with a company is do a podcast and be like, hey, do you want to be a guest of mine? You're a guru. I'd love to interview you on my show, right? Because again, you're giving that expert, you're giving that leader the opportunity to brag, and you're building that rapport with them, right? A friend of mine, graduate mechanical engineer, ironically enough, for an entry-level job, he needed 5 years of experience, right? Even though he just graduated from university. So he printed his resume, went to the first company that was on his list. 9 a.m. showed up. When the reception said, "I'd like to speak to the director," they let him go, "Do you have an appointment?" He said, "No." They were like, "He's busy." He's like, "Okay, I'll wait." And he waited there till 2:30 in the afternoon. Right?
Yes.
Just waited. And eventually at 2:30, the director came in and was like, "I understand you want to talk to me." And the guy said, "Listen, yes, I want to kind of give you my resume personally. I know you're not hiring right now, but I've researched your company. I think you're doing great things. I'd love to work here." They ended up having a 10-minute conversation in reception, and he was offered the job on the spot at reception while speaking to the director. Because how many people do you know that, let's say, wait in the company the whole day just to have one conversation?
I've never
We
heard
don't
of
do
that.
that. We're all like, we become lazy and indeed, send the resume kind of thing.
What?
So
So
that's
it's kind of business. It's a business. You got to treat it like a business and market yourself and brand
correct.
yourself. That's what I'm getting.
There's, again, being different is okay. It's because at the end of the day, like a friend of mine just told me that they posted for a job and they got 17,000 resumes. 17,000.
The chances of you getting seen.
And this was like a warehouse job. This wasn't even a professional job, right? But so you want to be different. So this is where I'm going to transition to, because that's a job search. So 10% job boards, right? Because there's still reason there, but they're the hardest. Then your recruiters, first point of contact, your LinkedIn, because they also read if you have testimonials, if you have credibility there, right? Then and other social medias like Instagram, TikTok, because they have their business pages there. And so if you get involved, they'll take a look at it. Then 25% kind of networking. And again, doing it correctly, not just networking for the sake of going to networking and being, okay, I went here, right? And then talking to your friends all night and not actually having a real conversation with anybody different kind of thing. And then the 15% is actually going out there and physically looking for that job. And
good breakdown.
Right?
It's a really good strategy.
Right. Now, your resume. Here are what I consider the 5 cardinal sins of a resume.
I'm interested.
Okay. Number 1, you use Times New Roman, Arial, or Calibri as your font. Why? Those are the default fonts in Microsoft Word.
Oh, you see, you don't think about that. And that's what you're showing the employer. You're just...
Second thing, you use the black dots or squares as your or hyphens as your bullet points, right? Because that's a standard we've been taught for the past 100 years.
That's right. So.
Third thing, and we started the conversation with this a little bit, but you have a section of like career history or skills where you write fluffy information like I'm hardworking, dedicated, committed team player with excellent communication skills and interpersonal skills. Okay, so let's take hardworking. How do you measure hardworking?
No,
right?
Measurable, yeah.
Right, so here's the thing. Like if I compare, again, I'll use accounting because it's an easy, and I've worked a lot in that category. During tax season, most accountants that works in public accounting like Deloitte and things like that, it is mandatory to work 80 hours a week. So what's hardworking? 100, right? Now, if I compare that to a nurse that was working at the height of the pandemic, at the beginning of the pandemic, where everything was shut down and the nurse had to do 4 hours of overtime, does that mean that the nurse is less hardworking than the accountant because she only did 4 hours of overtime? It's not, because each profession has its own stress. It has its own kind of things to deal with. So, hardworking can be measured. Excellent communication skills. I've met a lot of people that have horrible communication skills, but they still get a job, right? Now, if I compare myself to, let's say, Les Brown, who's made tens, if not hundreds of millions of dollars as a motivational speaker, I can say I don't have excellent communication skills because I haven't made that level of income yet, right? But I teach public speaking to people. I teach people how to do debates and, talks. And so, Toastmasters is a great platform that teaches you the art of public speaking, but you can't measure those things. So I call it fluff because your definition, my definition is different. And it doesn't really help me on the job, because every job posting posts that you need, other duties at a time, you need to be a team player, right? Even if you own your own business, you still need to be a team player because you have vendors, you have suppliers, you have, even for your clients, you can't just be like, I don't give, right? Like there has to be a limit. So why are we wasting time filling the resume with that
So
fluffy
you
information?
don't even put that on that. So
No.
let's get rid of that. Got it.
In
Okay.
20 years of recruiting, I've never once looked for a resume that had those words.
Bro, that is it's nuts because that's what we think, people not in the know.
That's what we've been taught. That's this common
Yeah.
mistakes, right? The next mistake, and again, this is especially if you switch careers like me, your resume is chronological or functional, right? So if let's say you lost a good job and you're working, McDonald's right now, right? And you put McDonald's first on your resume, but you were an engineer before that. Understand, employers are spending 5 to a maximum of 30 seconds reading your resume, sorry. So if the first thing they see is McDonald's, do you think they're actually looking at you as an engineer?
Damn, that's
right?
So the dates, that's not really putting them in that order.
No, I would put it in kind of what's called semi-functional, which is what's the information that's relevant to the employer. So like when I write a resume, I like to put a section called selected highlights or achievements, right? And I give my top 5 or the person's top 5 achievements. Why? Because if you're reading the resume for 5 seconds and you go, oh, boom result, boom result, boom result, boom result, boom result, you don't read the actual resume. When I worked in finance, after 9/11, I got downsized from Fidelity Investments, right? I went to Invesco. And the HR is looking at me going, it's great that you've worked for Fidelity. It's great that you have the licenses and the background and you've done all the back office. But have you ever worked in a call center? And I looked at her and go, if you go to page 2 of my resume, I worked in your call center for 6 months, right? And she was like, oh, yeah, that is kind of thing.
So that should have been the top since that's the job you were applying for.
Right. But that's where, put the relevant information, not information for the sake of information.
Got it.
And the biggest mistake of all, and this is what we started the conversation with, because people list their duties and responsibility. I don't care. So let me give you an example from my career. I can say to you, Hulo, I'm a great salesperson. I know how to do B2B, B2C, account management, relation building, lead generation. I've worked retail. I've done door-to-door sales. I've done car sales. I've worked in private education. I've worked in recruiting. Just because I told you I had a lot of jobs doesn't mean I'm any good at them.
That's right.
Right? Now, here's the thing. Those words are important for LinkedIn, Indeed, and all of the algorithms of finding your resume because those are technical words associated with sales, right? But which one would impress you more? All those words or me saying, I worked for a private college that before I came in, did $530,000 in sales for the year.
Measurable.
In 1 month, I generated $860,000 in sales for them. This is a true story, by the way, right? Now, usually the reaction is, wow. And then the next question is, how? And as long as I can explain the how, I've just proven to you, I know.
Again.
So if I take any profession, you're a software developer. I don't care which languages you know, because nowadays, if you know how to code in 1 or 2 languages, you know how to code. But there's a very big difference between coding, let's say, in a bank, where you're building a small piece of a very big machine that already got documentation, that already has processes and procedures, versus building a startup where you have to figure out everything from scratch and you have to do everything on your own. I'm not saying you're a bad programmer if you work for a bank. I'm just simply saying there's a different skill set that if you're in a bank for 20 years, you have routine. If you're in a startup, you figure out routine kind of thing, right? And so the results that you can produce. So look, if someone at the bank came and said, I improved something by 30%, I'd believe them because there's a lot of old software in the banks. I interviewed somebody that coded Amazon Prime. We're talking about less than half a second to get me the information that I want. If he told me he'd improve things by 30%, I'm like, you're Amazon. Okay, explain to me how you improve less than half a second to find me the information by 30% kind of thing, right? Because it's not like I sit there on my watch go, I didn't find it fast enough kind of thing, right? So now there are nuances, and I'm purposely using that extreme, but you have to understand that in any profession, there's quantifiables, right? You're an engineer, you built a better bridge, you saved 1% of the machine wearing out or whatever it is. Doesn't matter. That's significant because they'll know that in your industry, right? You work in marketing. You took, let's say, an Instagram account or a Facebook account from 100 followers to 10,000 followers in 3 months. And you did it all organically. Now you have a story to tell me about how you approach it, what you did to get to that and to get to it organically, right? Because just because you're certified in Google ads or Facebook ads don't mean anything to me. And trust me, unfortunately, I've spent a whole lot of money on marketers that told me that they're licensed up to wazoo to get zero results, kind of thing.
So, okay, so measurable is like imperative. Your communication has to all be measurable.
So, again, so you have to understand, this ties to everything in life. Like, if you approach someone to ask them out, and you're like, hi, do you want to go out? What are your chances?
Probably
none. Slim and none. They might be physically attracted to you, so it'll give you a few minutes to try and actually have a conversation with them.
Yeah.
Right? If you go to a job and do the same thing, one of two things will happen. Number one, they won't hire you because you don't have confidence in yourself. Or number two, even worse, they will hire you because they know you're desperate. So they'll take advantage of you, and they'll take advantage of you and pay you nothing. But if you come to an interview, go, I'm the best there is. Here's the results I produced. Here's how I produce the results. And because I have all this experience, I can only make better results for your company, right? There's a different listening of you. There's a different respect to who you are. And so now they're going to say, how much money do you want to come here and not go somewhere else? Versus, you're desperate. We don't have to pay you anything to come here and work.
Much work. It's
Right.
a much situation.
So even questions like, what are your 3 strengths? Hardworking, dedicated, committed. What? Give me stories. Tell me examples. Because when you tell me this, you know what? I had a project that we were way behind. I worked 2 weeks of overtime, 3-4 hours of the night without pay just to make sure the project was done on time. What do you think happens to a company when they hear you work 2 weeks of overtime without pay?
Yeah.
They like you or don't like you?
I mean, it's kind of obvious.
Right. It's kind of obvious, but you would think, but again, I can tell you stories of not obvious, kind of like, I've had extremes of stupid shit people doing an interview to kind of extremes of, I got somebody a $450,000 raise in 4.5 hours.
Woo!
Right? So both extremes, but you have to understand, I have a collection of, seriously, don't tell me you did this in an interview.
No,
Can I share a couple with you?
Yeah, sure. Please do.
Right. So, I had a very large client in the photocopy industry, kind of thing. Right. Now, the HR manager was one of the most stiff, rigid, proper women I've ever met in my life. When I say stiff, rigid, I'm talking like British proper, like button shirt up to their chin, perfect posture, zero sense of humor. Okay. I found them a guy that already had booked with Fortune 100 companies, Fortune 500 companies from their direct competitor, right? Spent an hour telling this guy under no circumstances crack any jokes with this woman, right? Just be strictly professional.
My God, I can imagine.
First question of the interview, she asked him, what motivates you in life? Now, this is a job that pays a base of $150,000 and commissions of $150,000.
Real job.
So a $300,000 gig. He looked at her and went, sex and money. In that order. Wait, it's not done there. There's a second part to the story. If that wasn't enough for her, he then went this. He then went to her.
Was he nervous? Why would he do so?
He was trying to build rapport. And I was like, even if your best friend is interviewing you for the job, sex should never be the first thing out of your mouth unless you're applying to be an escort or a stripper.
Oh my goodness, that is out of this world.
This is not even my worst.
What did you tell?
I'll give you a second one. I have a few of them. Like I said, I have 20 years of this.
What did you tell him, like, afterwards, after this happened? Did you just talk to him about it?
Literally, I was like, what do you have? Like, what were you thinking? What? Like, I said to you, answer like this, like a robot, like a parrot. Word for word what I told you. right? $300,000 job. Like that,
Jeez.
right?
I wonder you'll make that joke again someday. Costing him $300,000.
Right. Another example, again, I had a credit card company. Their slogan might have been hands in your pocket back in the day kind of thing.
What,
right?
Wait, that's real? Like that was a real...
These are all real stories. I'm like, right? So, anyways, so they needed a graphic designer. It's like mid-November. Found them this stunningly beautiful woman. And I mean like stunningly beautiful, right? Super bubbly personality. Extremely talented graphic designer. Okay? So they decide to hire her as a temp because it's the end of the year. They don't want her officially on the books, right? She's on the job for 2 weeks. Senior VP comes over to her and goes, listen, everyone here adores you, right? I know you're a temp. I know you've only been here for like 2.5 weeks. I want to personally invite you to the Christmas party because I want you to feel like you're part of this family. I want you to feel like you're part of the team. She showed up to the Christmas party in an outfit that left nothing to the imagination.
No.
And when I say nothing, I mean see-through scarf. Like if you remember, J-Lo wore that like see-through dress that proceeded to get completely drunk out of her mind within 20 minutes of arrival. And again, if that wasn't enough, walked over to the senior VP that invited her to the Christmas party, and in front of his wife, stuck her tongue down his throat. And when he threw her off, she turned around, grabbed the first woman she saw, and stuck her tongue down her throat. Right? Now, have you ever heard the expression, shit rolls down?
Yeah.
So you can imagine the night the senior VP had trying to explain to his wife, why this stunningly beautiful, naked woman is making out with him in front of the entire company. Right? So, needless to say, I got a call at 9 a.m. and he yelled at me for 5 hours straight. Right? And because they were such a big client, we ended up giving them like 6 months of temp work for free as an apology. But, in the background, I'm thinking like, how sexually promiscuous are you? Is not one of my interview questions, nor is it one of my reference check questions.
Yeah, I don't think it is right. I don't think it is for anyone. So, right. Okay. So this is that side. How about the side that you do, the organizational culture? Can we talk a little bit about that side? Because I love that.
So again, let me start with a story of a really bad culture, right? So I used to work for a bank. I used to be a stock trader, right? I used to answer the phone. It's a great day or it's a fantastic day. At name of bank, my name's Joseph. How can I help you? One of my coworkers complained that me saying great or fantastic could be interpreted as the bank's making too much money. So senior management had 3 2-hour-long meetings to discuss whether or not I was allowed to say great or fantastic, and decided it was easier to ban me from saying those words than to retrain 120 traders on the floor. Now,
wait, that happened?
Yeah, wait, it gets even worse than that. So after this happened, one of the senior VPs personally came to me and was like, Joseph, you're super positive. You're always energetic. I'd like you to form a social committee because morale here is really low. I'm like, wait, great. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to organize a potluck because everybody loves food.
Yes, everyone.
Right? And he looked at me and goes, nah, that's not going to work because the majority of the traders here are bachelors. They'll probably just give you $5, $10 and say, I'll eat whatever and everybody else ready. So I was like, don't worry about it. I'll take care of it. And I created an Excel spreadsheet. This many people bring drinks. This many people bring cookies. This many people bring cakes. This many people bring main courses. This many people candy, et cetera, et cetera. And I logged off the phone for 2 hours. I started with the senior VP. I said, I don't care if you make it, your partner makes it, your mom makes it, or you buy it, but you have to sign up for something, right?
Yes.
I don't, because like, for example, you're not going to make Coke at home. You're going to buy, let's say, drink or whatever, right? Now, the day of the potluck, I logged off the phone for 2 hours to organize the food in a logical manner so that we didn't have like meat beside chocolate kind of thing, right? So that, we can kind of rotate the table properly. I had 4 full-size boardroom tables worth of food. That's how much food we had. 4, right? For the next 3 months, everyone talked about how amazing the potluck was, how much variety of food there was, and stuff like that. And I won 7 out of 10, or came in the top 3 for 7 out of 10 contests, including answering 155 trading calls in one shift. Right?
Nice.
The bank refused to give me my bonus because I was logged off the phone for 4 hours to organize the very thing that the senior VP asked me to do. Right? So here's the thing. Banks and insurance know that they can pretty much get away with murder because, like, they have 160 lawyers that do this all day, waiting for anybody to try and sue them. They'll bury your great grandkids in litigation. Unless you got lawyers that have deep pockets, or you yourself have deep pockets, it's a losing battle. That's why most people don't necessarily sue the bank unless it's a, what do you call it? When you have multiple people suing at the same time. I forget the term for it.
Class action.
Class action. Thank you. Sorry. It's one of those brain freeze moments kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
Right. But here's the thing. So because they know they can get away with it, like I personally, when I worked in the banks, I felt like I was being in prison. I'd get better treatment than working at the bank. Now, that was my experience. There's a lot of people that love working in the bank, more power to them. But you couldn't pay me $1 million to ever work in the bank unless I was hired as a senior VP where I was allowed to change the way they treat people.
So
right?
the culture is normally bad in that
Right.
industry. The culture is
Right. So understand that culture as a definition, like, I'm going to steal from Guy Kawasaki, who was the evangelist for Apple back in the day when it first launched out. He said, executives go on retreats and they spend a week coming up with every word for the mission statement and the vision statement of a company. He goes, go to Burger King. Ask the manager of Burger King, what is the mission and vision of Burger King? Unless there's a plaque right in front of him that says what the mission and the vision is, I have no clue what the Burger King mission and vision is. Right? He said, so instead of creating all these missions and visions, create a mantra. Nike, just do it.
yes.
And if you look, even if you look at the story of like how they signed Jordan for the sneakers, right? They just did it. They took a chance. They had a leap of faith in essence, kind of thing. Zappos, before Amazon bought them out, all their commercials were silly and fun, and they were like, we're fun, right? And so everything in the company was about fun. So you're a law firm or an accounting firm, and you're telling me that you're fun, but nothing in the company is fun, right? Now, understand, like, you can be a fun firm if you have you have a baseball team, you have basketball, you have a like European football team or whatever, so that there's community, there's activities being done outside of the regular 9-to-5 jobs, like everybody goes for drinks together, something like that is fun. Then yes, you can say that you're fun. I'm not saying that there aren't. I'm just simply saying that a lot of organizations preach, but they don't actually practice. My friend, speaking of banks, my friend just got hired as a senior director for a bank. When she interviewed, they showed her this beautiful state-of-the-art yoga room. She's like, okay, wellness, they get it. This is the bank that's proactive. She got hired. There's no yoga instructor. There's no incentive for anybody to teach yoga at the bank. You don't even get an extra 10 minutes at lunch to do your own yoga. So you have this beautiful room that nobody uses because the bank doesn't actually give you the opportunity to use it. So when I talk culture, understand that when I speak to executives, because a lot of people call themselves leadership coaches and things like that. That's why, again, I branded myself as a corporate culturist, because A, it intrigues people. B, it's a different conversation, because I'm not telling you how to be a leader. But I'm saying, understand your people. Understand what drives them. Understand what connects them. So even, let's say, the money that you donate to charity to get your tax relief. So feed the homeless. Okay. But when was the last time the executives asked their employees, what are the causes you care about? So if you care about, let's say, the Latin community, and let's say you're the employee of the month, what if an employer came to you and said, Julio, you know what? We appreciate the work you've done. We're going to donate, let's say, $2,500 in your name to a Latin charity of your choice, for example. Right? Because now you get to say, wow, I did this. I contributed to this, right? So culture is about the social responsibility. Culture is about the behaviors inside the office. Again, there's nothing wrong with having like a military style, everything is there. But if people know that's what they're getting into, there's people that thrive on that. People that like that, right?
They'll come to you because of that.
Right? Yeah. Versus the we're creative and stuff again, accounting and law, I don't necessarily want creative. Like, I want creative in that you understand the loopholes in the tax system so that I pay less taxes. But I don't want creative like, oh, look at how the Mickey Mouse drawings on my accounting statements are, right? Like, there's creative and there's creative kind of thing. But there's a level where, again, similar on your resume, I like having personality. You know, we haven't gotten back to the full resume mistakes of there, but, you know, add a little bit of color, change the bullet points. Like, if you go to the bullet things, there's choices for you, right? You can even choose an image from the company that you want and shrink it and put it into like an icon of it.
That's cool. You see, but can I be honest? Is that I didn't know how to look for jobs for a long time.
Most people don't.
You don't know. You believe that it has to be this template type why?
It is and it isn't. Look, it's the same thing. Like, look, let's just use, you work out, right?
Oh.
Do you work out?
Yes.
Okay, so let's use working out, right? You see a lot of guys go to the gym, bench press, but their technique's wrong. They're not, let's say, squeezing the shoulder blades back so that, you know, they're isolating the muscle. Even for bicep curl, they're like, and you see them heaving with their whole body and stuff like that, because they're, like, again, it's one thing if you're trying to level up on the weight, but if you're heaving your body, you're not actually using your biceps. You're using your back muscles to lift or do. And so this is where injuries happen. So you either hire a personal trainer to teach you and guide you. You watch experts or, you know, coaches that kind of do personal training and have achieved a certain level of following that kind of say, here's things that you need to be aware of. You have conversations, whatever the case may be, where other people that are more in shape with you, you ask questions, right? You discern the information because, like, let's say when I go to the gym, I'm not looking to be, you know, no neck and a refrigerator kind of thing. I'm just looking to slim down. I'm looking to be healthier, right?
Yeah, the goals, right? You got to have those goals.
Right. But here's the thing that, like, for example, since I'm speaking about this, I was on another podcast and there was this, I was interviewing for like kind of a fitness coach. And this 22-year-old girl says to me, she's, I'm a personal trainer. So I'm like, okay, did you study kinesiology? She's like, no. I'm like, okay, have you competed in a high level like, at sports? She's like, no. I'm like, okay, have you gotten your like TRX, kettlebells, or any of the other fitness designations? She's like, no. I'm like, okay, so how did you become a personal trainer? She's like, I watch YouTube videos.
Oh, no, you can't say.
And then I'm like, okay, so let me get this straight. I'm like, have you ever had any major injuries that you recovered from them? She's like, no. So I'm like, okay, I have two torn rotator cuffs and torn labrums. I'm 47. I'm double your age. And you watch YouTube and you're going to tell me how to work out.
All right. So I guess that you didn't hire that coach. I mean, I'm guessing.
But again, if she's targeting, let's say 20-year-olds and she's 20 years old and, you know, okay.
Works.
Right.
There.
Now, same thing, like if I go to a trainer and they weigh 300 pounds, my first question is, were you 500? Because if you were 500, you went down to 300, I have mad respect for what you've done.
Definitely.
Right? Because it's a big mindset to overcome. Yes. But if you're 300 because you enjoy your pizza and your cake, but you power lift, like there's a different, like I'm not looking to be a power lifter. So your training might not be right for me. Right. I have no disrespect to the fact that you're a power lifter, but I'm not looking to be in that category.
That's not your goal in the situation.
So similarly, if I use financial advisors, right? Again, I get approached by financial advisors all the time. I usually ask them 3 questions or one of 3 questions. My first question is, what's your net worth? If they get offended by that question, I'm like, listen, if you're struggling to pay rent and I have $1 million to give you and you've never handled $1 million, you're not the correct financial advisor for me. I'm not saying you're bad. I'm just simply saying you're not at my level.
It's not my fit.
Right. Similarly, if you don't want to answer that question, I say, how much has your biggest client invested with you? Because I want to know that you can handle larger transactions, for example. Right. And again, I'm not saying who the client is. I'm just saying how much have they given you? Because if your business client's giving you $25,000 and I'm ready to give you $1 million, you've never worked with $1 million. And then my third question, which is the most important, is, do you know anything beyond mutual funds and insurance? Because I was a stock broker, so I was licensed. So I know derivatives, options, futures, FX, crypto. there. So if you can't have a conversation with me about those, you're
You
not
can't help
necessarily
me.
right for me. I'm not saying you're bad, but you're not right for me.
You're
Similar
not
for
for
me
me.
as a resume whisperer, career coach, whatever you kind of there. Again, you might prefer to work with somebody in the Latin community. I respect that. You might prefer to work with somebody that is this age or this industry or like. I'm not saying right now, unfortunately, in North America, there's about 65 million people that are unemployed. There's 55 million people that are severely underemployed, i.e., have a university degree but work at McDonald's, and another 40 million people that are going through some sort of education or retraining. That's a target market of 150 million people. Now, Indeed brags that they're their largest job board in the market and they have 50 million users. That means there's 100 million people that are not being served, first of all. Beyond that, here's the thing, though. I have resumes on Indeed from 30 years ago. I have recruiters calling me now going, oh my God, you speak French and Spanish. Do you want to go work in a call center in a bank for $50,000? And I'm like, how old is the resume that you're looking at? Because if you look me up, I built 2 call centers from scratch. The last one was supposed to generate $300,000 and did $2.25 million in less than 6 months. So are you really calling me for a $50,000 job kind of thing?
Makes sense.
Right. So you got to understand, like, my personal game is to try and help 1.8 million people. Right.
I wanted to ask you something about that, right? Because it's a big job, right? It's a big job you're trying to do. It's an important one. What drives you to be in this sector? What is it personally?
So here's the thing. I'm took, in a very long route. I now have 5 different mentors in my life. And, every successful book, Think and Grow Rich, all of the big books kind of say, you are the sum of the closest 5 friends that you have. Luckily, my closest 5 friends, I'm the most broke. Right? The next one's worth $15 million. I have 2 billionaires that mentor me. So there's a level where I'm going, okay, beyond the fact that I want to make money, it's about legacy. I want people to remember that I made a difference in the world. And my genius is to kind of go, I could take anybody, I could take a custodian and make them sound like a brain surgeon. I can help them level up their family, their life, because as life happens, like, you're in your 20s, you want a good job because you want to enjoy life. You want to go party, you want to go this, right?
Patience and all that. Good.
Like, I'm married. I got a 4.5-year-old. I have a 2.5-year-old. I just spent 5 hours at Gymboree with my kids, kind of thing. So my priorities is giving my kids opportunities, giving them experiences. That's my why. Giving my wife, is amazing. Whatever she wants, whatever she needs, kind of thing, right? But it took me until I got married to understand the why, kind of thing, because the intrinsic value was always there. It was always like, I love making a difference in people's life. I love, I'm the behind the scene guy that I made that difference where, oh my God, I got a job in 2 days. Like, again, give you a quick example. So when I first started salsa dancing, right, my partner was, I would say, 12 years my younger, if not more, right? She was still in college. She was studying graphic design. And she called me up and there's this internship at one of the largest telecom companies in Canada. I'm interested in it. I'll do anything. I don't really want it. I'm like, you really want it? She's like, yeah, I'll do anything. Okay. I'm going to be like your Mr. Miyagi. Wax on, wax off. You don't ask any questions. You do exactly as I tell you. Right? I said, you're applying for graphic design. You are not allowed to have a black and white resume because the word graphic and design are in your job title. So we made her resume green. Instead of using these common black dots that everybody uses, she had like a little dancing guy that was her signature for all her works or whatever. We used that as her bullets there. She was a barista at a coffee shop. I explained how that's graphic design because she was drawing on the lattes and, making you the picture and stuff like that. She sent the resume in. 2 weeks go by. She doesn't hear anything. She calls me. She goes, "You suck. They didn't even call me." Right? Right? An hour later, they called her. They're like, "Listen, we're so sorry we haven't called you sooner. We received 7,400 applications for 20 unpaid internships. Your resume was one of our favorites." Right? Now, because we received so many applications, we're going to do a 3-interview process. Your first interview is going to be in 2 days, right? And then we'll choose the best. So she comes like, I'm like, first, apologize.
Oh, and you shouldn't say, well, remember when you called me to...
Right? No. I said, first, apologize, right?
Yeah, I think let's start.
Okay. Then I said, okay, first thing I want you to do is pick your, let's say, 10 best works and print them out on the highest quality glossy paper at Kinko's or Staples or whatever kind of format that you use, right? Second, and again, this is going back 20 plus years, go and put all your social, like all your graphics on back then was a platform called Flickr, which is very popular with graphic designers and so forth. So put it there so it's easy to see, it's easy to follow. Then I taught her my system on how to interview, 7 rules to a perfect interview kind of thing, right? Had her ready. She showed up to the interview 15 minutes into her first interview. And this is 2 days later. They told her the interview was 2 days later. The director put down his pen, looked at her, goes, I've been running this program for over 12 years. I have never been so impressed with a candidate as I am with you. Congratulations. You're my first hire.
Good
I'm not even bothering with the second and third interview.
Good for her.
Right? And again, 2-day turnaround. But understand there's certain things like, for example, I did the Tony Robbins Walk of Fire. Life-changing experience. And then after I did it, I started reflecting, going, how come we're not using some of these principles for job finding? How come we're not using some of these principles for leveling up in terms of career? And because, again, I think at this stage, I've invested over 30,000 hours to master everything there's to know about job finding, with the exception of a few very tough Google interview questions. There isn't really an interview question I don't know how to answer, right? But look, because I switched careers so many times, I also went through that pain. I went through that, like, how do I explain to you that I have skills that, like for the most part, I'm not applying to be a brain surgeon. So to transition from like customer service to sales, it's the same conversation, just, closed a little bit in terms of, there's elements that are different, right? But to be honest with you, it's a little bit of just kind of, the more I started, like even in recruiting, I've done stuff in recruiting that most recruiters would not dream about, right? And there's always that mindset of, how can I be of more of service to you? How can I be of, right? And the more I understood how much of service I am, the more all of a sudden people started coming to me, and the more people were like, okay, this is your price, okay? Because even when I talk to you, the conversation is very different than every other resume writer or career coach, which is why I don't call myself a career coach or a resume writer or, a guru, a job coach or whatever, because there's a gazillion of them. But how many resume whisperers are there? How many corporate culturists are there? Right? So like, I've owned the term and I step into it. And there's things that, again, I read, I study. So let's use the music industry. I'm assuming you've heard of a band called One Direction.
No.
Right?
I would like to say no, but yes.
No, right. So they sold 1 billion records. But here's the thing.
It's just not my type of music for some reason.
Fair enough, but I'm using them as an example for a purpose and a reason. So the band was so eager to become famous, to become musicians, that they didn't really read their contract properly. And Simon Cowell kind of, in the way that he set them up, said, I'll get 75% of the sales because I'll do the marketing for you. I'll do the PR for you. I'll pay for the studio. I'll get the writers. I'll get the choreographers. And so they sold 1 billion records, 1 billion records. The band made about $350 million. So each one of them made 70 mil.
That's a lot
Simon
of money.
Cowell made $1 billion off them.
That's so mad. That's
right.
mean.
And if you look at any of the talent shows, like America's Got Talent, Idol, how many singers from the 80s and the 90s are broke right now because they had the wrong contract in any industry, right?
And now they're there. They're hosting instead of enjoying.
No, but not even hosting, but like auditioning because they want a second chance at it. So I understand, like my daughter's 4.5 years, she loves singing right now. If my daughter comes to me and says, hey, I want to be in the music industry, I want to be in a position that a good studio that knows what they're doing to produce an album is going to cost me $350,000. I want to be in a position not only that I can pay that $350,000, but then open a record label under my daughter's name so that her music is hers for life, royalties. And then, we'll call it disrupt the industry through my daughter in the sense that we offer fairer, more balanced contracts so that it's not, 80-20 kind of split or 75-25.
That industry as well.
Right. And so, again, I surround myself with people that are much smarter than me to kind of go, I don't know much about the industry. Like,
so let me ask you this: as being a person that helps people with their career, you having a good career as well. What do you think? Also, now we're not talking to somebody looking for a job. You're just like, if you're the mentor, what is the most important skill set for them to have to start using a lot in order to get anywhere in life?
I think the way you worded your question is wrong, because I'm building an HR tech AI platform right now. But here's the thing that you understand, and here's why I'm going to say why you worded your question wrong. Because if I use an engineer, most engineers that get promoted consider it a punishment. Most engineers that get promoted consider it a punishment because they like being technical. They don't necessarily like to talk to people. So if you are, let's say, an engineer and you want to become a director, the skill set is not about the technical anymore. It's about, let's say, presentation skills. It's about communication skills. It's about strategy. It's about vision. It's about delegation. So whether internally the company is willing to mentor you to grow, whether it's doing industry certifications that, let's say, it's not, again, getting more technical. It's about like, okay, you don't know public speaking, go do Toastmasters, go join the American Association of Professional Speakers, go join there where there's training on that, right? So that when you go to leadership, you're not saying, hey, I'm a really good worker. You're saying, I'm designated.
Got it.
And also say, give me an opportunity to come up with strategy. Give me an opportunity to lead a team. Give me an opportunity to show you the impact I can make on a larger scale, right? It goes back to the same conversation because, again, if I use software developers, right? Generally in the world of software, you have 0 to 3 years of experience, 3 to 10 years of experience, and over 10 years of experience. So at the 3-year mark, like, Julio, do you want to still get jobs for 0 to 3? Or do you want to get jobs for 3 to 10? Or do you want to start learning how to become a leader? If the answer is, I want to become a leader, then, okay, these are the skill sets that are not software development, that are not technical in the sense that...
So you answered the question. You answered the question. A skill is to, or you need to know what you want to do in life.
It's
right?
not necessarily in life. Look,
hold
I
on,
respect that. Let's put it this way.
You need to know your success or what is success to you, so then you can get the skills, support that with and learn the skills to target that.
Right, but and this is why, successful people always have mentors. Doesn't matter what. You have a mentor for health, you have a mentor for mindset, you have a mentor for there. So I want to make, let's say, consistently a few $1 million a year. I need to find mentors that are making a few $1 million a year. When I get to their levels or better, I'm like, thank you, but I'm outgrown you. Now it's time for me to level up and get a bigger mentor candidate, right? Because there's a difference between someone who's making $1 million a year or $2 million a year to someone who's making $10 million a year, to someone who's making $100 million a year, to someone who's making $1 billion a year, right? So you pay more for that expertise. Like, so Tony Robbins charges $1 million a month to coach you. And that's like one face-to-face conversation with him or phone conversation on Zoom.
So mentorship is important as well. It's something else you should be looking at to get in order to start honing your skills. So look, we're running out of time because I wish we could talk for longer, but how do people get in contact with you? How do they get your services?
So again, josefstetter.com, thecelebrategroup.com. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on Facebook. I'm the only Josef Stetter there is there. If you type in resume whisper, corporate culturist, I'll probably show up. LinkedIn is probably the fastest and easiest because I'm most active there. But I'm there on Facebook. I'm there on Instagram. I'm pretty much on, the main social platforms. And again, all my sites have contact me opportunities or links and stuff like that, understand that I can help the individuals grow and I can help companies hire the right people and keep them, because that is a massive issue right now in North America, is just turnover, like $1.4 trillion. Like, the statistics show that one open position costs the company between $100,000 and $180,000 per month. So if a position is open,
need you. Listen, thank you for joining me. It was a fun conversation. You definitely know what you're talking about.
Thank you,
Let
sir.
everybody know you know what you're talking about. You're helping the two sides of the issue, which is huge and perfect. So keep doing what you're doing and helping people get their jobs. Thank you. And we'll get together again. I definitely want to hear more about
Muchas gracias por tu tiempo.
A la orden.
Repeat after me. I am powerful.
I